This review is for A Vampyre Story, which is a modern game made in 2008, which is a bit of a departure for me, as I seem to mainly game inside a year bracket of about 80s to 90s, which was the heyday of the adventure game genre, and pretty much, in my opinion, most of the best games ever made were made during that time. Still, don't let this being a modern game get you down. It actually has an amazing pedigree of original LucasArts employees who were designing games, and not just designing games, designing some of the best games in the adventure game genre during this time when adventure games was pretty much the king of PC gaming. And their vast experience and obvious love of adventure games is so clearly evident in this game that the sheer quality of this title is really no surprise. Just a note before I continue though, I was enjoying this game so much that I kept forgetting to turn off the screen recording application and split the files of the recording into smaller sections. So the slowdown you see in this video is not actually in the game. The game is completely fluid and you don't have any of that sort of jerkiness which is caused by me having these ginormous video files, because basically I was so engrossed that I completely forgot that I was recording. A Vampyre Story is the brainchild of Bill Tiller, who is a founding member of Autumn Moon Entertainment, the company that is producing this game, which is published by Crimson Cow, which is a German publisher. Now, Bill Tiller has quite a decent background, as he was originally a LucasArts employee for around 9 years and worked on such games as The Dig, Rebel Assault, Curse of Monkey Island, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. And he worked as a background artist and later as a lead art director, and I believe he also did a bit of game design here and there. He's teamed up with a few other quite large names from LucasArts like Jean-Louis Siros and Bill Eakin. I'm not sure if I pronounced them correctly. Bill Eakin is the former lead artist on Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis and The Dig. The Dig just happens to be one of my favourite adventure games ever made, and in my opinion one of the best looking games of the old school adventures. And having these two artists who are behind that game in this game really produces one of the best looking adventure games I've ever seen. Like, the art in this game is amazingly stunning. It just blew me out of the water. I couldn't stop looking at it. It's just so gorgeous to look at, this game. You play Mona Lafitte, who is an opera singer who was abducted from Paris by the evil vampire Shroudy. You've since been turned into a vampire and basically turned into his slave in the castle, and befriended a small bat named Frodrick. Frodrick is your constant companion through the game. He sits on your shoulder and often provides a lot of the comedic dialogue. This is actually a very good little device because it allows the game to have a constant source of conversation rather than walking around completely alone in the game world, which is a problem that a lot of adventure games have. Luckily, some good fortune falls upon you when Shroudy goes out hunting to get you some more blood, or vino as he calls it, and is killed by a couple of vampire slayers. Mona sees this as her chance to escape back to Paris and reclaim some of her old life, for at this point in the game she is not entirely convinced that she's actually a vampire.
It's my bed.
Really? Because I thought your bed was down in the basement. You know, that pine box with dirt in the bottom that smells a bit like a corpse?
Well, I like sleeping down there better because this room gets way too bright.
So your main goals are to escape the castle in which you're trapped, and in Chapter 2 to get out of the village and on your way to Paris. The game also boasts very good voice acting, notably Rebecca Schweitzer and Jeremy Cormer, who do Mona Lafitte and Frodrick, among a few other characters. And their performance is absolutely top-notch, especially Rebecca Schweitzer. She's just so awesome in this game. In many adventure games, you actually get sick of hearing them speak, especially when you're looking at things that aren't actually involved in the plot, just hearing their little comments. But the conversational back and forth between Frederick and Mona with these incredibly good voices is just a joy to listen to, and of course the writing doesn't hurt. It's worth noting, of course, that I played the English version of this game. In addition to this, the composer, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, Pedro Macidio Camacho, has done a fantastic job with the soundtrack of this game, which luckily for me was included in the collector's edition. The soundtrack is probably up there with my favourite things about this game. It is a slightly humorous soundtrack. Like, it's not too serious, but it still has that gothic kind of old movie style evil vampire feel about it without bringing down a heavy mood into the game. It's very well done, and the subtle effect of it is actually quite sophisticated. Anyone who's familiar with the original LucasArts games will be very at home with the interface of this one. It uses the same coin interface as Full Throttle introduced way back in the day. So instead of having a context-sensitive cursor that decides what you do for you, which is one of my pet hates and one of the reasons why I kind of prefer the old Sierra games, you actually have a deep level of control about what exactly your character's going to be doing when you click on something. And of course, having a feeling of control is what really makes an adventure game shine. Also in this coin interface is a unique command called fly to. Mona can change into a bat, so there are areas of the screen which aren't accessible by normal walking or are too small for her to fit through. Also, that it's not actually used that many times in actual problem solving. You can sometimes forget it's there, so unless you're keeping an eye on when to use this, you can sometimes find yourself wandering around wondering where you're meant to go. As I've said, the developers are adventure game veterans from years ago, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the actual inventory interface. A common complaint among adventure gamers is, how can I carry all this stuff? Or why would I even pick this up? I mean, I don't know what I want to use it for. Why would I even pick up that, dog bowl? It works the same way as any standard inventory item. Basically, you pick something up, but instead of actually picking it up and breaking the realism of the game, the character just says, okay, I know where that is.
But it may have other uses. I'll remember it's here.
And if she needs it, she'll fly back as a bat and pick it up. So there's no actual difference in the way you use the items. It just addresses some of those fundamental flaws in item-based adventure games. And this to me really shows they have been thinking about adventure games and the past adventure games and how people have related to the way the characters behave in the games. Okay, I'm running out of time here, and I did want to mention that this game does have its flaws. The biggest flaw for me is that it's very easy. Any seasoned adventurer will be able to go through this game very fast. It's pretty much just an item puzzle game. You just find items and you use them. There's no actual puzzle box puzzles, but there are some combination puzzles, which do require you to be paying attention to the information you're receiving. When I say you'll get through this game quickly, I don't mean that it's a short game though. It's actually quite long. It's just not difficult. Another big problem with this game is that it doesn't end. It is one of a series. There's actually 2 chapters in this game, which I assume was originally meant to be released as 2 games. And now we're waiting for chapter 3, but most probably released as chapter 3 and 4 in a sequel called Vampyre Story 2. Unfortunately, due to the incredible amount of art in this game, which is obviously my favourite bit about this game, these chapters are going to take a while to make, so be prepared to be waiting a good amount of time before we see the sequel, and in turn, the end of the story. There is also some quite hideous pathing problems in this game and a few clipping problems with 3D rendering engine. Now, a lot of these have been addressed in the patches which you can download off their website, but there still are a few in there and they can be really annoying because the rest of the game is so polished. All in all, I have to say that while I found this game very enjoyable, it's not going to rate as a great, amazing must-have game. The art, though, is. Like, if you enjoy looking at beautiful art, then get this game. The actual game design itself is also outstanding. These people really know what they're doing, and I really hope they might consider doing a more serious game that actually has a deeply involving plot. Well, thanks for your time, and I hope you like this review, and I'll see you next time.